that recording?
Not on the live stream.
Oh, so we're just recording today and not live streaming, is that right? Okay.
We're having issues again. with
Right.
the-
I'm going to call the November 13th, 2025 meeting of the Lexington Planning Commission to order. We are recording but not live streaming today as we're having some issues. So the first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Do we have any, does anybody need to make any amendments or anything? And if not, then I'll take a motion in a second. Excuse me.
Move approval of the agenda.
Second.
Sorry, was that a second?
Yeah, sorry.
Yep, great. All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? And motion carries. And next is approval of the minutes from the, let's see, October 23rd meeting. They looked good to me. Does anybody else have any? All right, then I'll take a motion in a second.
I move to approve the minutes from the last planning commission meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is citizens' comments on matters that are not on the agenda. Do we have any comments? Nobody's rushing up, so I'm going to close that section. Moving on to new business. Excuse me. Okay. ECCOA 2025-07, a request by Cheryl Trent for approval of a certificate of appropriateness for new signage for Anytime Fitness at 439 East Nelson Street, tax map 30-1-9, owned by Andorra Properties LLC. Arnie, do we have a staff report?
Indeed, and good evening, everyone. We have a request for new signage. This is for Anytime Fitness. Anytime Fitness is going into the Old Valley Pond location. You see a map there showing the approximate location or the signage, and then Anytime Fitness will be in 439. So it's the second unit over. It will be beside the Advanced Auto. Property is in the Commercial Shopping Center C2 zoning district and also in the Entrance Corridor Overlay District. They are requesting an internally illuminated 205-inch by 54-inch vinyl wall sign and another internally illuminated panel and a freestanding sign up front. The proposed sign graphics are included in the application. See a couple of photographs on the next page of your staff report, just showing the front of the Old Valley Pond location. And the sign will go on that upper roof level where it's blacked out or charcoal gray. And then you see the freestanding sign closer to East Nelson Street. And obviously the Valley Pond will pop out of there, and then they'll put an Anytime Fitness panel into that freestanding sign. On the next page, you have your entrance corridor criteria, and staff does find that the proposed improvements meet the zoning criteria. And if you'd like to flip over to page 14 as an example, there is a good representation of the proposed signs. And over on the page 15. Happy to answer any questions.
All right. Do we have an applicant statement? I take it we do not. All right. Do we have any public comment on this item on the agenda? And it looks like we do not. So, commission discussion and decision. Any thoughts?
I had one question. So the sign on the building itself, that is internally illuminated?
It's a channel letter sign.
Yeah, right. And then the one on the street, that's illuminated.
Those
as
are
well.
internally illuminated also. They will have like bulb running in the interior panel, and then that's a see-through, well, not see-through, it's a translucent panel, so it'll be lit from the back. Yes.
Okay. No, I think it looks nice.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Well, we need a motion and a second to move forward.
I move to approve the entrance corridor certificate of appropriateness application ECCOA 2025-07 for new signage for Anytime Fitness at 439 East Nelson Street as proposed by the applicant. I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving on to, the next item on the agenda is CPA 2025-01 Comprehensive Plan Review, Green Infrastructure Chapter, by Jeremy Crute with the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission. And we'll also be talking about the Community Facilities Chapter. And we can, I guess, talk about those in either order. We've done them in reverse order before, which I think is fine.
So if I could just perhaps mention that we've received detailed comments from you and from Mr. Hall. So I propose, if it's acceptable, that perhaps we don't go line by line for each individual item, but if the more substantive items, if you want to go through the body of the chapter first, and then if we'll maybe spend some detailed time on the spreadsheet that includes the goals, objectives, and strategies.
Sound good to everybody?
Also encourage anybody, if you have additional comments that are more detailed nature, just submit those and we'll make sure that all of those get included in the final draft.
Great. Any other? Okay. All right. Let's, well, how should we do this? Do you have any?
I can
Statement?
give a very, very brief just overview of the chapter, if that would be helpful. Just, I guess, real high overview, as you are well aware that the green infrastructure chapter does provide that overview of all the green infrastructure resources and amenities and natural systems that help sustain the natural environment within Lexington, but also try to enrich the quality of life for residents there, providing all of the benefits that they do and all the cost savings ultimately as well. So we can walk through the chapter piece by piece, but it ultimately just includes a summary of the topography, the soils, air quality, the tree canopy, the open space, stormwater management, water resources, all of those different resources that support life in Lexington, and then as well as providing a summary of the work the Green Infrastructure Working Group has done to further green infrastructure initiatives since the previous comp plan was adopted, and then tries to take all that information, incorporate it into but first the needs assessment and then the goals and the strategies. So that's, again, extremely high level, and would love to get any comments or feedback that you might have first on that sort of content section, which is a lot of the planning context, community engagement, and partnerships and initiatives pieces before jumping into the needs assessment and the goals and objectives.
Okay. And before we go any further, if you'll state your name and
Yes,
address.
absolutely. I'm Jeremy Crute, Director of Planning of the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission. As always, it's a pleasure to be with you this evening.
Thank you so much for being here. Okay, so right, so I understand that Charlie, you submitted comments, I submitted comments, and do you do you have comments that are substantive comments, or were your comments more like grammar, typo?
Most of them were of the latter,
Okay.
but I did have a few substantive. I'm trying to find them now.
Okay, well, why don't we go through mine? We're not going to go through the grammar and the typos and the, little stuff like that. There were a few things that I pointed out, and hopefully you'll sort of come across yours as well.
No.
That I thought would probably be items that we would want to really talk about. So, yeah. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about, and this is in the green infrastructure, actually it comes up in both of the chapters, but since we're doing green infrastructure first, I'm on page, excuse me, 36 of the green infrastructure chapter, not of the overall packet. It's page 22 of the overall packet. And this is the map. So, and also actually maybe on 35 before that, the issue is that I'm questioning why we're included in this Chessie Nature Trail, which is not owned by the city. And I don't believe, and Leslie was also thinking that there's no Chessie Nature Trail in Lexington city limits. I can imagine why it was included, but since we're being, there are other trails that are nearby that are not included on this map. So I just think that it might be worth taking it off.
Except that there's a whole discussion about the brushy hills, the whole trail system, and that is part of it. So I do think it helps to have it for that.
Jesse is part of the brushy trails system.
Yeah, from brushy.
You're talking
Hill-
about the brushy blue.
Yeah, brushy blue all the way to Buena Vista, right? Yeah, right. And so in that part does have several goals for Lexington as far as having a connection around Kendall, Ross Road area. So from that standpoint, I do think it is relevant and probably important to note.
Does it help if we just note it with 4 asterisks and then say not in the city of Lexington?
That, I mean, that could certainly work, yeah. And that is, so on the same map on page 36 of the plan, the Chessie Nature, some of the other ones like VMI Poston Woods has an asterisk that says, private site.
Mhm.
And so maybe it needs that. But probably also worth noting on here that it's not just a private site, but it's not like located in the city. So and then the Uncas Trail is also similarly not, it is a private site.
Though they did cede access to the city for it to become as part of the conservation easement
So
agreement.
it's like an easement.
Exactly.
Is the easement owned by the city?
It is not,
Or
no, but
deeded to the
it
city?
allows public access.
Right, but the site is private.
Site is private, but but the access from Public Works to
Right.
the river is open
Public
to the public.
access.
Yeah,
Right, okay. I would like to just make a note of that.
Yeah,
So-
you can, I mean, you can make it, yeah, I guess private site, but
Private, but
public
with public access.
More generally, would it, I guess, be helpful to go for both of the maps to go through each of the sites that are listed, make, say, 1 asterisk for if it is privately owned, and then say 2 asterisks if it is not within the city limits or something to that effect.
Certainly could do that, yeah. I'm just, yeah, I mean, and I do have like,
Or I could color
I have
code them
lots
differently
I
too.
have lots of comments on this. It's just that one, because the Chessie gets mentioned a lot and comes up a lot and yet is not in the city of Lexington. And I know that it's a linkage, but there are other linkages that are also not included. So yeah,
linkages that are that significant.
I'm sorry.
When you say there's things that aren't included, like what's an example of something that's significant, like the Chessie Trail is?
So, well, actually, another thing that is significant that I think would be worth exploring, and that may be something that gets explored in the goals section, is that my understanding is that the Woods Creek Trail is not actually designated as like public access by WNL when it goes across WNL and VMI property. And that might be something that that the city would want to work towards getting like some sort of an easement, for example, across their properties. So that it is in fact designated that way. So that's an idea, and part of why I suggest that, I'm looking at the Woods Creek Trail. The marker for the Woods Creek Trail is not on city-owned property, I don't think, no. 18 up here. So that's a little bit out of the section. But I think, these things are worth getting right and knowing what we're talking about in terms of who owns what and what kind of access people have.
Yeah.
So the Chessie Trail is one thing. I had a bunch of things about, what things are called.
Mhm.
Like Boxerwood. They don't use the Woodland Garden as much, and I talked to them today and they just said Boxerwood Garden. So,
Uh-huh.
so there are things like that are in here, and you don't need to make note of them because I promise they are all in my, they are all in my notes. Let's see. And you'll see that I'm, yeah, let's see. Woodland Garden. No, the Rockbridge Conservation section needs to be completely rewritten.
Can we get help with that? I mean,
I've
you
rewritten.
got all of it.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a suggested language
Perfect.
that, yep. Which I'm happy to read out loud, but I don't need to. I mean, I'm not feeling like I have to read it out loud. But I'm happy to read it out loud if anybody would like to hear it out loud. Is that a yes, or is that a, I don't know?
Me? Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't have strong feelings one way or the other, because we'll get a chance to see all of this again.
Absolutely.
So we, because if we're sending stuff to you,
Mhm.
right, each of us individually, it's good that we'll all get to see it again at some point. And I'm
Absolutely.
happy to hear it now or to read it then. Sure, whatever.
And I'm assuming whatever you receive from many of us, you will filter and,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
I would imagine so. So are we good? Or does anybody want me to read this out loud? I'm happy to.
That's okay. I was most concerned about the name change. Getting
Oh, about Rockbridge Conservation, you
Yeah,
mean?
right.
Yeah, because that's, yeah.
Mm.
It is still technically the Rockbridge Area Conservation Council. However, we have changed our name.
Yeah.
I am on the board.
What
And
page is
that's a
that on?
couple of years old. That is on page 38.
Thank
Let's see. I'm gonna move. All right, and in this partnerships and incentives, so 37, 38.
Mhm.
I would actually suggest reorganizing these so that so that you put like, for example, Boxerwood is up front, followed by the cemetery and the tree board. This sort of like bouncing around between city organizations like government.
Yeah.
And nonprofits and sort of adjacent organizations. And I would just, and I made note of that in here, but I would recommend reorganizing so that it's a little bit clearer and maybe put some sort of a designation next to it, like nonprofit
For sure.
or government.
There's something on the effect of all the city organizations first, then all the nonprofits, then all
Yes.
like the regional. and big
Yeah,
ones. Perfect. Mhm.
that would
Yeah.
be, that would make sense in my mind.
Perfect.
I'd like
Um,
to add one thing while we're on this particular page. So on 38, this Heal Healthy Eating Active Living City. I was able to
Yeah.
find the resolution, but not anything else on anybody else's website. So we might be able to free up some room there.
That'd be great.
I was trying to remember what that was when I saw that.
It's a lovely resolution that I can pass along. if you like.
Okay, various rewords. Here, this was one that I had a question about, one on page 40. One of the, one of the recommendations is to encourage conservation easements. This one is opportunity for conservation easements. It's on the first column at the bottom.
Mhm.
And I was just wondering what that is. And are you like,
What page was that? in?
sorry, page 40?
The needs
It's that
assessment.
page, right at the
left.
bottom there. It says an opportunity for conservation easements in areas designated as open space on the future land use map.
That was one reason we provide you with a copy of the future land use map. But I can't remember my timing. So if this was actually in our comp plan before the Uncas Trail received its easement, So this could have been pointing to that specifically,
Hmm.
and we can look at the rest of the map to see if there are any other opportunities still that remain in an open space area where a conservation easement for public access would still be viable.
Yeah, the Donald track, that's exactly what it was, we modified our comprehensive plan to include that language, especially that the last phrasing,
Mhm.
providing public access for recreation because of the Uncas Trail. And so that's how it got in there before we even did it. And that's about the only other place we would probably consider it is at the Donald track near that East Lex area.
Ah.
Only a little bit of it's in Lexington, but and it's at one that's hard to develop.
Got it. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so,
I have a.
Yeah.
For the a need to increase accessibility for the disabled and continue efforts to achieve compliance, could we just take out for the disabled? Like accessibility can be an any one issue and it still then continues saying to follow the ADA after. Does it need to say for the disabled? You know what I
I
mean?
can't imagine increase accessibility
And
and continue efforts to achieve compliance.
Mhm. Like strollers, it's, that's an accessibility for strollers and it doesn't
Sure.
necessarily have to be disabled. Yeah.
I think that's very, yeah, good idea. Okay. Does anybody else have anything else on that page? Or, I mean, the next thing I have is that is worthy of paying a little bit of attention to is on the next page, page 41 on the needs assessment. And that is, there are two things. And again, I'm just reading off what you already have. Great.
Please.
So Rockbridge Area Outdoor Partnership is now called Rockbridge Outdoors. And then I'm suggesting again, an entire rewrite of a paragraph, which is, wow, that second paragraph. And that is, yeah, that's the one about the brushy blue because it was just a little bit confusing the way it was written. So I just recommended a rewrite that just is
They're not changing the intent.
not changing the content, no. Just trying to clarify. I'm happy to read it. If that. Okay, you'll see it.
Perfect.
Okay.
Are we still on the needs assessment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know we had talked about this in another meeting, specifically when we we're talking to the bullet point number 3 about sidewalks, pedestrian, bike lanes and whatnot. Could we have some note in there about trying to connect the city to the county? We talked about how there needs to be something that allows children or people to get across city lines into the county, which would be maybe going to the high school, walking or biking, or Walmart, or some access, the transition between the city and the county.
Sure. Absolutely.
Access there, a need for that, I guess.
Perfect.
So that sounds like it would go on page 40.
Yeah, that's what she was pointing at. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed, I thought, yep.
It's just kind of expanding on the
Yep.
the need for pedestrian, bicycle infrastructure, sidewalks, crosswalks, that whole bullet point. Maybe also, a note in there to be able to tie it to county access, especially when it comes to access to the high school.
Yeah.
Or, some of the shopping, if people want to get from city limits to Walmart safely, that kind of thing.
And also, housing. There's all that housing that's out
Exactly.
on, well, I guess
Main
it's
Street?
sort of out past on 39. So that's not in my notes. So did you write
I
that
got
down?
that, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Great
okay.
point.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Okay, so that's that's all I had that seemed really critical and sort of bigger.
Mhm.
So shall we go through the goals and objectives and strategies now? Does that work for everybody? Does anybody else have anything? Charlie, did you find your,
Yes, you covered it.
I covered, okay.
I add one thing, please.
Yeah,
For
absolutely.
page 42, the third item there, improve energy efficiency of city buildings and consider installing solar panels at Waddell Elementary School. I recommend striking that last part of the sentence because we investigated that and we would lose the warranty on the roof if solar panels were put on.
Hmm. As long as we're on that page, and number 9 on page 42. I wonder if protecting our existing urban tree canopy and increasing the urban, sort of protect and increase. Protect existing and increase, and that is in there, but I just wanted to make note of it. We see a lot of trees coming down. And I also included some things there, notes about native species that we should really focus on those, which we should, I'm not quite sure how to get people to talk to each other and sort of say, okay, well, this really matters. But in terms of the strategies, like we can say encourage, but how do we actually encourage people who are making decisions about what trees get planted to talk to look at this and say, oh, we're supposed to be doing native plant species.
Maybe you
I don't know.
could put in there, that they seek the recommendation of the arborist. Yeah, or the local native conservation. I don't know what board this is, but somebody that knows and would recommend the trees that need to be planted in that area.
Right.
I mean, not that I know exactly, but to your point, I mean, not only are you trying to increase and protect them, but that maybe it's advised that they seek, recommendations from those people when they're replanting.
Right. And I totally agree. And my concern is that we're working with a plan that probably doesn't get looked at that much by the people who are making those decisions. Is that accurate?
Sure.
I mean, it
There's going to be huge pushback if you're going to try to legislate whether people,
Yeah.
what people can plant and take down too. All we really can
isn't-
do is encourage.
But isn't that a decision that the city could make to say, yeah, we actually really want to focus on native species? I mean, we've said it in here.
Yeah, no, I don't think there'll be any incentive to legislate it though. I mean, we do have an arborist who can advise you on those kind of things.
Yeah.
And a tree board, who,
And a tree board, right?
Mm.
part of their mandate is to educate.
Right. Well, I'm thinking about, some very special trees that just came down in the city, so.
Well, maybe also for, some of the city property or, I think,
The ones
I
we do
understand
have
Leslie's
control.
point of like private residence property or
Right,
whatever,
you-
but I mean,
yes.
if you're replanting on city property or, some of the curb appeal areas of between sidewalks or roads or whatever, then the focus could be, native species and you can kind of mandate it or suggest it heavily or
Right.
something.
Right. And the question is, how do we get beyond saying, yeah, we want to do this and actually have people pay attention to it and actually make the decision to go ahead and go with native plant species. And part of this in all honesty is driven by the fact that we're planting ginkgos, which are a Chinese tree in Courthouse Square, where we have taken down a couple of very large native old trees that could have been replaced with other native species.
We have a landscape architect help with
I-
all of that.
I'm
and,
aware.
yeah.
I'm aware, but that's, you know, to the point of how do you get those conversations to happen so that the landscape architect knows that it's in their, you know, in their
Requirements.
requirements to choose a native species, that the city wants to promote native plants. And is there any role for doing that within a comprehensive plan?
I would argue that we're at such a high level right now, we're talking about sort of the policies. And I really don't think that there's gonna be the political will to start legislating that we only can replant in the city property, or so on city property, or particularly not on private property.
Well,
So
sure.
it's this, I think we are at this higher level, limited to collaborating, educating. That's sort of the policy decision. Or that's just where the level where you are. So as an example, on page 44, GI 4.1, one thing that I had written in there, because this is about educate and encourage landowners to install green infrastructure, best management practice, plant native trees and vegetation, and reduce fertilizer and pesticide use. Now, coming at it from a slightly different angle, I thought, well, we don't do the education part all that well, just to be honest. And I was going to recommend adding to the beginning of that and borrowing some language from below, collaborate with local organizations to educate and encourage landowners. So just adding that collaborate with local organizations. And so that might help with pointing people in the right direction, but that doesn't get to, I think what your point is us not trying to promote something and not doing it ourselves. But so far as I understand it, the tree board only has purview over city property and not, and in the commercial district, I think only, and not in residential private property.
Right.
I
And,
think that would be a big push. And
yeah,
not
I'm
sure.
actually thinking more about city owned property. I mean, private property owners are gonna do whatever they're gonna do. And so I'm really thinking more about what the city can do because it's publicly owned and we're paying taxes to make these things happen. And so,
Like a lead by example. I'm sorry, lead by example.
right, lead by example. So do you have any experience with this?
Have seen community that did something like what you suggested of, I'd have to think how to wordsmith it, but to, as much as possible, as opportunities arise to plant native trees on city-owned property when, or I guess a better way to put it, like when you're going to be planting trees on city-owned property to, as much as possible, use native species or ones that are appropriate for that ecosystem or the like. So I certainly have seen recommendations like those kind of high-level recommendations within comp plans before. So that would be very easy to maybe include under, say, objective number 3 as a possible strategy and I can come up with some language that might try to get at that idea if that would be helpful, so that in addition to educating the broader public for how they want to do their land as the objective or the strategy that Arnie just read gets at, you could have one that sort of then zooms in on what would be city owned land.
Would that be something that would work for the rest of you all?
Where is it gonna fit? I was just
Um,
curious.
I was thinking under objective number 3, so maybe like as 3.7 or something like that. Because I know within there's already objectives on as 3.2.
Page 43.
Excuse me, page 40, yeah. There's already an objective or a strategy in there related to growing and maintaining the city's tree canopy coverage and the like. So it might maybe fit in right underneath that one as maybe say 3.2. I could see it fitting under objective number 1 as well, but as a fitting in there as the new 3.3 might be at least an option for where it could fit.
Mm-hmm.
And it would basically be articulating the hope that the city would would like use native tree species on city property.
Yeah.
Landscaping when
sure.
feasible or something like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. To the greatest extent possible or something like that.
I think that would be great.
That's the best we can do.
I'm sorry,
I suppose if that's the best we can do,
if that's the best we can do. I mean, yeah, right.
you're always going to run into controversy over what is a native species too.
Sure. But I don't think anybody's going to say that a ginkgo is.
think somebody would.
Oh, really?
We'll keep that off.
Okay, we'll talk about that later. Okay, so why don't we start going down one by one? So excuse me. The first, I'm sorry, I don't know actually what these different symbols mean, the values or symbols. What does the puzzle mean? And maybe that points to maybe we need to label them with words as well.
Sure. We can definitely do that. Absolutely.
So the puzzle piece is the value. The first objective is create a connected system of green infrastructure to support biodiversity and green time, in quotes, access for individuals of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds in the community. And the first strategy is explore opportunities to improve or add public access sites and linkages and increase public access to waterways. So public access sites and linkages. How is that? What is the public access to? Does anybody know?
I mean,
In addition to the river, to waterways. It says improve or add public access sites and linkages and increase public access to waterways. So what?
it is, I think that they're both for the waterways in
I see.
particular.
Okay. So improve or add,
So it's add public
So-
access sites and linkages and increase public access to waterway. It's all for the waterway, like in the river and.
You could change that second and to two, and it might clarify that.
yeah, I think that's great.
Maybe possibly delete this one just because we really don't have much opportunity at all to get access to the water other than the Uncas Trail and what we have at Jordan's Point Park.
I mean, other than through VMI and WNL's woods,
Chelsea Trail.
that. You know, that it hurts to keep it in there in case an opportunity ever came up, but right, we're not gonna make a lot of progress on it. Though,
Well, Woods
with the
Creek-
Jordan's Point master plan, that, I mean, that's part of it is to improve access to the waterways.
Yeah, I would definitely leave it. In addition, we have Woods Creek. And if we're trying to add public access sites and linkages would certainly be Woods Creek because people can walk along Woods Creek to the river, to the Maury.
Maybe that's a place that you brought up before about the city having the easement where it crosses WNL. I mean, maybe that linkage could, maybe a note could be put in there about the city trying to get that easement that connects those trails without.
This could be a good place for that.
We have actually explored that before and it's not gonna go anywhere.
Oh,
Is it not?
No, that came up, I think it came up about the time of the master plan or maybe before that, but no.
Oh.
Neither university is gonna cede access
okay.
and, you know, something like COVID happens and they want the right to shut it down if they have to, but that's not their intention to do normally.
Okay.
To have this vague recollection, maybe it was the comp plan last time, or there was definitely that thought that it needed to occur, but the universities already just dedicate that for public access and they're not willing to go the extra. No, I shouldn't say they're not willing to go. I'm not sure that benefits them. And it's highly unlikely we're going to lose that access because of who those two entities are.
Mhm.
So I still think it's worth putting it in there just as a placeholder to say, you know, because we never know. At some point in the future, it may be that either one or both of those institutions becomes more interested in, you know, in having having that as a public benefit that makes, you know, it would make for good press. It would be a good thing that they're doing for the community. And it wouldn't cost them very much to do. I just think it's worth having it in there. Excuse me. So would you say that in terms of, so we don't have the we don't have the two columns that would be whether we've made progress or completed these items, but would you say that we have made progress towards exploring those opportunities? It seems like we probably have.
Mhm. Yeah, I think especially with the Georgeport master plan.
Okay. Um, so explore opportunities, maybe including across, securing.
I just don't see any point in put, I mean, I think this is broad enough to include it, but I don't think we're gonna make that, the city will have that as a specific goal, is to try to get easements on those trails there. I mean, BMI opens up the Chessie Trail to us.
Right, but aren't they required to? Wasn't that part of the agreement?
There may be, but at some
think
point
so.
they had got into a fight with somebody, a property owner, and then didn't allow them to use it or something like that.
Okay, so you think we should not have anything about VMI and WNL? Is that what you're saying, or
Yeah,
just leaving it and
About
this is
trying to get
enough?
an easement, no, I would.
Do we have somewhere in here something I mean, we do have easements. Now I'm not sure whether we have one of these that's talking about easements. And maybe it would be maybe that would be under the last one, the fifth one. I'm gonna make a note, easements.
Well, and then, yeah, and the next chapter has a lot of discussion on easements, but it's more about sidewalks and things like
Right,
that.
right. Okay, so we'll maybe put a pin in easements, put it towards the end in that last section. And move on to green infrastructure 1.2, enhance access to and connectivity of natural open spaces in all development, redevelopment, and capital projects. Do we already do that?
Maybe we use the Spotswood property as an example when that came up. Enhance access and connectivity to natural open space. They were happy. I don't know if you consider their stormwater retention facility or anything of that nature, open space. But then it's usable versus just what sort of left over as a utility. So I'm not sure, like, your question is, do we do that in every opportunity? We do have some redevelopment opportunities and some development opportunities. I can't obviously through my chatter, say that we always enhance access and connectivity to natural open space.
So I have to say that it's not clear to me that it is possible to do it in all development and redevelopment.
Mhm.
I wonder if we need to reword that so that it is even achievable. Like in all,
Just drop the word all.
maybe just drop the
Yeah,
word
well,
all. Maybe drop the word all and then add as possible. As feasible as something. And then the question is whether we have done some of that. I know you said Spotswood you said it's what is it there in Spotswood?
When we had the
Stormwater.
project that we no longer have, I was just thinking
Right.
about the layout on that site.
So access to and connectivity of natural open space in development, redevelopment. Does, I don't suppose you remember what the goal here was in this one.
No, but to get back to your other question, enhance access to national space and capital projects. I mean, we do a lot of capital projects. I'm thinking about the one that's out right now for bid, which is the access to the water at Georges Point Park, where some benches will be put in so that people are right beside the bridge abutment that used to go over. There's going to be a nice enhancement there. So that's a capital project that certainly enhances access and connectivity to natural open space.
Okay. Okay. All right, so then we'll mark it as, yes, we've made some progress towards this. It's certainly not complete and it sounds like it is reasonable to keep it. Anybody else have anything on GI 1.2? All right, moving on to 1.3. Undertake a citywide green infrastructure assessment and develop. Actually, I'm going to suggest and implement the plan since we've already developed the plan. Develop or implement the plan to create a continuous publicly accessible green infrastructure network that connects neighborhoods, destinations within the city, waterways, and regional assets. So I would actually say that the regional asset, I mean, would this be a place that we would talk about the high school
Or some of that, like shopping.
and the shopping
area.
center? Yep. So maybe I would actually even maybe say regional in addition, well, how would we word that?
Well, how far are you trying to get? Like, say, if you're talking about the high school, we do, going out the bridge, there are bike lanes and pedestrian lanes.
Yeah.
And then that's the end of the city. So we're not gonna do, it's up to the county. kind of.
Right.
How we have to
I think that's maybe
keep
it's
yeah.
partnering with
uh,
the county
right,
probably.
okay.
So maybe this is not the place for it. So maybe that's under. Maybe it's under this last one, the value that has the gear and the 3 people. Sorry. So connections. Rockbridge County. All right, so I'm adding I just put a pin in that for the last one. Okay, and Arnie, does it make sense to replace that first back in GI 1.3 instead of having it say undertake a citywide green infrastructure assessment and develop? Does it make sense to take that out and just say implement the city's green infrastructure plan?
And I would say also other plans too, because as you all were talking, it's when there's the develop a plan to create, and it mentions a number of things. We already have plans, as an example, the Route 60 corridor plan that gets you out East Nelson Street under the bridge and over in the city county's portion. And similarly, there was a CSPDC helped with as soon as you go across the bridge on Route 11, there is a whole pedestrian, can't remember what that was called, all the way to Waffle House, not just because we want to get people in the city to Waffle House, but because there are improvements.
Right.
So the plans are already there, I guess is my point in both of those.
So is maybe it is referring specifically to some of these plans because I'm guessing that a lot of people don't know about these plans.
Well, I didn't know that there was already, so you're saying that from the bridge that crosses the river that goes into the county towards Walmart and Waffle House, as you said, there's a plan to create a sidewalk all the way.
That was done in the last 3 years with the help of the PDC. And then the county has gone for funding through VDOT, through the smart scale, or is the
Okay.
TAP, and I can't remember which, probably
Probably
TAP.
was, for a project that big, it was probably smart scale, but I don't know for
They
sure.
were also doing segments, so, and they wasn't funded, so it's the funding that's the issue.
Oh.
So the plan's there, but there's no money to
No
do
money,
it.
Yeah.
It would be very easy to amend 1.3 to say to implement the green infrastructure plan, that plan, and if there's any other plans that we could
Like
add
PED.
on, bike ped plan. um, to get at that idea of now that we've conducted all of that, here's the next steps in terms of moving
Mhm.
forward.
Some of that will be in the transportation chapter somewhere. and Somehow
Sure.
we just make sure that we're dealing with infrastructure in those.
Yeah, and that's, I think the balance with all of this is there is, with a lot of these chapters, there is a fair bit of overlap. Because even like to your point of connecting, making sure you can have walkable access to the high school and stuff, that also is going to be addressed first and foremost within the transportation chapter. But that doesn't mean that it's not worth addressing or reinforcing
Yeah.
in all the other chapters that also get at the same issues. And to the same point with, the other thought that I'd had is within all of the green infrastructure strategies, there's never a strategy that suggests to increase park space. Some of these kind of get at that. But I know since that would primarily come up within the community facilities chapter, but that would be another thought of if we're thinking about trying to create this network or network of green infrastructure, then certainly, as much as 1.2 does, trying to enhance that within privately owned properties and new developments and redevelopments, the other opportunities to do that would be if there are opportunities for enhancing or expanding park space or access to park space on VMI, those types of things. So that was the other thought that had crossed my mind as one of an idea to bring to the table to see if that was something they wanted to include or not, or given the city's limited land availabilities, if trying to enhance this green infrastructure network through all those other facets as opposed to additional parks, that would be another consideration. But wanted to at least bring that to your attention in case that was something that you wanted to include as an additional strategy within the particularly this first objective.
I would say no because of our limited space. And we really have done an inventory of parks and we have parks spread out pretty well throughout the city.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would make sense.
We just,
And any of
Limit-
those parks, I'm not aware of any, but I could be not aware, are any of the parks that we have, do they have public tennis courts?
no. And there, in the Jordan's Point Park master plan, there was a proposal to add either pickleball courts or tennis courts on to one of the parking lots. But no, I was trying to think if Lilburn at Downing they don't have tennis courts, yeah.
I don't think there's anywhere anyone to play pickleball or tennis courts that's public.
Well, you can play pickleball at Brubaker Field at the basketball court. They have Raros lined it and provided, Roppers Pickleball has provided nets. It's actually pretty nice. There's 3 courts there.
Okay.
But tennis, no,
Uh-huh.
tennis is tough.
Big. Okay, so 1.3 is in progress. We have made progress towards it. Moving on to 1.4, unless anybody has anything else on 1.3. Okay, 1.4. Plan for access to healthy, affordable, locally grown foods for all neighborhoods by supporting sustainable food initiatives such as urban agriculture, farmers markets, and composting. Well, we certainly have the farmers market.
Aren't they considering moving though?
For now, they're staying.
There, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Mitch Wapner had a letter
Okay.
in the paper saying the city of Lexington is not forcing us to move, which apparently was a rumor that was going around. I know that, they're interested in having a flatter space, which makes a lot of sense. But right now they are not moving. Okay, and so that seems like we are, at least it's something that
Ongoing.
it's ongoing.
Yeah.
Okay, so 1.5, encourage access to energy efficient transportation options by supporting the siting of e-vehicle charging stations and facilities for bicycles and other micromobility devices. We're certainly doing that. Through bike lanes, and there are various EV charging stations around. Anybody need any comments on that one? Okay. Let's see, GI 1.6. Support urban wildlife and biodiversity initiatives such as Monarch Butterfly City or Bee City designations and citizen-led efforts to install birdhouses and bat boxes. My understanding is that we don't allow bees in the city. Is that?
Right.
That zoning administrator made a determination that a bee is a wild animal and wild animals, and I'm paraphrasing, are not allowed for the code.
So does that mean that I can get rid of the skunks in my yard?
Do what you want with this guy. No, and I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember the exact language, but is it a wild animal? You're not supposed to have wild animals. So sometimes people's dogs are wild. I get that, but bees and people are allergic to them. So we've had this discussion a few times, just sort of on the periphery of should we be allowing the keeping of bees? And it hasn't come to a point where we've actually done a text amendment.
Okay, I'm just wondering because it's in here.
I encouraged it last time to put it in here so that we would consider allowing
Ah.
bees.
What about places like, I don't, now I'm not, I don't know who would manage them or whatever, but, the, up towards Boxwood, the trail along Ross Road, the nice nature trail, I mean, that's perfect area for monarch butterfly housing or bees, and it's already set up as a great bee habitat and everything. I don't know if that's somewhere that it could be added in bat houses as well. I mean, it's
Right, well, I assume we allow bat houses or do we not? Bats are wild animals as well.
Some of them are easier to control in the sense that, if you're gonna put hives out and you're gonna manage them and do that as a new thing, as opposed to bats just happen to fly out of your chimney with. That's a different thing.
So, well, I mean, but people do put up bat houses
in owl houses.
and really owl houses? I've never.
Yeah,
seen them. And we have a birdhouse and I hope we weren't supposed to get a permit for that.
But keeping
Outed
bees
myself.
is different than just putting out a house because you want your bees to stay there.
At
You
the-
don't care what birds use your birdhouse. Now, if you're gonna just designate one bird, then it's an issue.
Well, that's right. I only want the bluebirds, which we had. Okay, so are we leaving the bee city in there in the hope that we will
Allow bees, I know.
allow bees?
Maybe it can be more translated into like the habitat and the native flowers and species that support that wildlife.
Mm.
In areas that maybe aren't mowed and, stuff like that, rather than bee houses per se, or
Or even a designation, which, well, I guess the designations do come with some sort of, you have to allow bees in order to be designated a bee city. So I'm sorry.
It just says such as, it just gives
Right.
describes what you're talking about as far as
So
biodiversity and
are we
stuff.
good with that then?
Yeah.
Okay. I assume that we are, well, I know we're Tree City.
Mhm.
Well, I do sort of wonder if maybe we want to include Tree City in there. Because we have done that. And just as an example of, look, this is the kind of thing.
Though if we if we just have native trees, we're kind of going against biodiversity.
Well, yes, Tree City, but only native ones.
No biodiversity in that case.
That's right. Well, there's plenty of biodiversity in the native trees. All right, moving on. Does anybody else want to change anything else or add anything else to GI 1.6? Okay, hearing no's. GI 2.1, encourage green building and green infrastructure and development proposals to increase property values and reduce infrastructure costs. Do we do that already?
I think the stormwater fee is supposed to help encourage people to have more green infrastructure as far as water. I guess.
Nothing on the
Version.
building side. I mean, we have the minimum building codes just as an example, but we don't incentivize in any way for you for someone who wants to put in extra insulation in their new build, but also we don't have that much new construction anyway. So not perhaps so much on the green building side.
But on the green infrastructure,
I think you could certainly take into consideration what was just mentioned. We're also, I mean, if you think of all the infrastructure that we're redoing, and in particular, at the end of White Street where the little rain garden that was yay big is now gonna be, I don't know, increased tenfold in size. So that's something.
Mhm.
on the green infrastructure side.
Yeah.
That the city is doing.
right, although it's not going to increase property values.
No, I know the increased property values is kind of but we actually did do this too when we put together our PDMU requirements, encouraging. I
Okay.
mean, that's a way of encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so then it sounds like yes to ongoing. Okay, next one, 2.2, involve energy efficiency of city buildings. Sorry, improve energy efficiency of city buildings and operations and assess the feasibility of installing solar panels at Waddell. So we've already done that. We're going to take that out. The second part. So improve energy efficiency of city buildings and operations. I am certainly hoping that as part of the city hall renovations that's happening. Is that accurate? That they're looking at energy efficiency?
I don't know enough of the details to tell you sort of what I think there was next to no insulation in there. They're certainly adding insulation, but also just the vestibule that's being added. I was gonna say the front, but it's actually the back side of the part of the building, which is actually the entrance to the building. There's a vestibule there, which will be a huge improvement
Yeah.
because every time that door opened in the winter, it was cold air in the
Right.
first floor. So that'll be an improvement
Yeah.
on its own.
Okay, well, that's great. So
Check.
that one is a yes. Okay. So develop Jordan's Point Park in accordance with the 2020 Park Master Plan. Is that, has that already happened? Is that happening?
It's going to happen in pieces. Currently, there is an RFP or queue out for the construction of several different parts of that plan. Mind you, there are probably 50 different pieces to that. And right now that access that I mentioned, that goes down right beside the bridge abutment, and also the moving of the drive. So as soon as you go on, instead of going around the ball field, you'll actually cut to the left before you get to the ball field, and the soccer field will shift over a little bit. And then there will be improvement of that drive all the way down to the water access that's at that end of the park, which I guess is the west end of the park. And an improved turnaround there with, I think, permeable parking spaces,
Yes.
if I remember correctly. So that's out for bid now. And the plan is on the Public Works website if anybody wants to take a look at that particular proposal.
A couple of small projects have been completed, like repurposing the timber frame that had the back toe in it and adding more seating area over in that one section of the park right by that
Name
know.
of
We-
the sidewalk ramp
Yes,
improvement
exactly.
recently.
where the bathrooms redone. I'm trying- No.
Well, that's great. All right, so 3.2, grow and maintain the city's tree canopy. Coverage through the existing tree planting program and other grants as may be available. What is the existing tree planting program? Anybody?
That I don't
We
call.
planted a single tree in Oak Grove Cemetery on Arbor Day.
Yeah, we usually have- every other day we put in a couple trees.
Excellent.
And they have been planting riparian buffers, so in
Woods Creek,
George Point along Woods Creek Trail. So I don't know if it's an official program necessarily, but Public Works does with the arborists
Right.
do a fair amount of planting.
Right, so this sounds like it's referring though to a grant. It says through the existing tree planting program and other grants.
Take off the last end of that sentence now. Existing
Okay,
tree
through the
planting.
okay, and then, or just maybe remove the word other. because there's nothing wrong with applying for grants.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And so that's a yes, we are doing that ongoing.
And just to clarify, we are keeping the language of through the existing tree planting program. Is that correct? Or are we taking that out?
Well,
Yeah.
it sounds like they are planting trees, so as needed and from time to time.
Perfect.
And is that, Charlie, is that run by the
The-
tree committee?
The city arborist.
City arborists? Okay. Okay, so 3.3 continues strengthening zoning and development regulations that address landscaping, tree preservation, and native plants. Uh-oh. Consider incentives to promote tree planting and preservation beyond minimum requirements. And would this be incentives to the public? Is that what that?
I would assume so, and I don't know how you do that.
Yeah.
We did add to the landscaping section of the zoning ordinance, and I can't remember if it was after this was written or before. But in the landscaping section, there are recommendations for a number of plants. Now, I don't think that they're exactly natives all throughout. But in landscaping where we have a landscape plan requirements, and this doesn't get applied that often because you have to be building something new or redeveloping something to an extent where this would actually be applicable.
Mhm.
So it doesn't happen all that often. Screening, yes, for mechanical equipment and whatnot. There's parking lot landscaping, buffering, and then recommended plants, the last section, which is section 420-14.9. Landscaping purposes, street shade trees. And the first one that's listed, Japanese pagoda tree. Silver linden, the Zelkova, American or Chinese elm, so that we do have something in the zoning ordinance that has a recommended plant.
Which we could look at and strengthen. Which we could potentially strengthen.
Yes.
And we did actually strengthen it once in the sense that we had to outdated in the previous zoning ordinance. When we did that big update in 2016, 2017, I remember running this list by the arborist at the time, and she made recommended changes, but we can certainly narrow that down if we need to.
Yeah.
But that's also not perhaps what you're getting at in the sense of these are recommendations, even in the zoning.
Well, I think it's got to start somewhere. And if the recommendation is in the zoning ordinance, then, you could come to a planning commission meeting and the planning commission could say, well, we're recommending native plants. Are you working with that? Or are you going to give us some happiness, some joy on getting some native plants or no? So that would be something to add to our hit list. Is that correct?
In the sense of updating that
Updating
plant
that,
list,
yeah.
Yeah.
Can you put that on our list?
that can go in the zoning hot file, yes.
Great. The hot file. All right, not the hit list. Okay. So does that mean that we are doing some of this, continue strengthening zoning and development regulations? Or not yet?
Sorry, I was writing notes. What was that?
Sorry, so would we say that we have done some ongoing progress or not quite yet?
I would think so, yes.
Okay. All right, next, promote 3.4, GI 3.4. Promote the installation of stormwater best management practices such as bioswales, pervious surfaces, and rain gardens, including on city properties and parking lots. I know that we're doing that. Are they doing that in the city hall parking lot?
Not adding any
Pervious.
pervious surface, so there's no reason to necessarily do any additional stormwater management practices.
Okay, I was just curious. Okay, GI 3.5, enhance the protection of streams and natural wetlands by updating development standards and incentives to protect and restore buffer areas and discourage underground piping of streams. Is there, I'm not sure exactly what that is referring to.
And there, we just don't have the ability to do much development next to streams. The minimum buffer standards that we're gonna have from the state will be implementing that, but this sounds like it's asking for more than that, does it not?
It wants to update development standards and incentives to protect and restore buffer areas and discourage underground piping of streams. So that would be what Sarah's Run. And isn't there one that is underground?
VMI has done 2 sections, by the baseball field and behind, Ballard's, going up to the, core physical fitness
Right.
building.
So.
I mean, but we don't have development standards or.
We don't, as an example, Public Works, as I understand it, has just development standards that they have sort of developed on their own and just sort of put together, but we don't have what is considered a true sort of land use development set of standards, which would be about yay thick. So the 6-inch curb with a pan has to be, exactly. So there'd be lots and lots of details in those standards. So we do not have, that was an idea, I think, in the last comp plan, in the sense that developed those, but then we got the price for what that would cost. And then I think that just went away. We have a true set of development standards. We're just not going to apply it that often. I mean, in the sense that we're not growing, there's no greenfield development, there's not a lot of redevelopment. So we sort of just go along with the standards that we have.
So would it, I'm so sorry. Would it make sense to get rid of updating development standards and change it to something like developing incentives? Enhance the protection of streams and natural wetlands by developing incentives to protect and restore buffer areas. I mean, it sounds like we're not going to do development standards, so that should come out. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, I would agree with that.
So would it make sense to develop incentives?
I don't know enough about the standards, to be quite honest, to know sort of what incentives we could that wouldn't cost a lot of money, first of all, and where's that going to come from?
Mhm.
So could this be a more, and I'm not sure if it's helpful or not, but just sort of a more generic statement of enhancing the protection of streams and natural wetlands?
By encouraging
protect.
buffing areas and discourage underground piping of streams or something, because we could cut both the development standards and the incentives piece and keep it on the protection of streams
Okay.
and the restoration of buffer areas or something like that, even if it's
So-
more broad like that.
Yeah, right.
Perfect.
So by protecting and restoring buffer areas? Is that right?
Mhm.
And discouraging underground piping of streams. And I know that Rockbridge Conservation is working with the city on restoring the Woods Creek buffer areas. Friends of Woods Creek.
I know there was some concern about the renovation of the country club and some of the
Oh, yeah.
runoff and everything on that into Woods Creek. I mean, was there any development standards there and protecting the Woods Creek?
Yeah,
and-
This lovely map, just as an example, all the way down the bottom left-hand corner, that green splotch,
Mhm.
which is conservation open space, but that's only 3.5 golf holes of the entire country club. So the rest of it's out in the county. You actually can even see sort of the outline, a little bit of, so
So-
that development standards would be coming from the county's land
County,
development
okay.
regulations.
And from
but
the
it's
state
hard-
too.
All runs downstream.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it's coming from, I mean, somehow
So
we have
there-
to keep it from getting into Woods Creek, wherever
There-
it's coming from.
There are standards that the county would then be implementing in that particular case,
Okay.
minimum standards from the state. And those are the ones I don't know. So I don't know how to speak to it specifically
Right.
by
'Cause you-
incentivizing.
The Boxerwood like has some of the runoff from the country club, right? And the lower
That's
part
correct.
of Boxerwood area and some of their wetlands and everything that in their little creeks that they have, like the country club comes right down
Mhm.
there too.
Exactly. Yeah, and the country club is on my list for the next section. But not on this section, but maybe it should be here as well. So this area that is country club owned and in parks and rec space, does it have any specific requirements on it? Like, in terms of runoff, in terms of protecting, like a buffer along the creek, do we have any requirements? Buffer?
Not for golf
requirements?
course. If that's the question, for the golf holes that we do have, do we have any additional standards that we are implementing out there? No, not that I'm aware of. And maybe just to add, because this is a bigger project for the county, and this is just a small sort of aside, the stormwater requirements the ENS requirements, so erosion sediment control for when they're going and disturbing land, which they're certainly disturbing out there because they're tearing up all the grass and doing modifications to the course. Because the majority of that project is in the county, it's the county ENS person that's actually managing it, even those 3.5 golf holes or whatever ends up being in the city. So there's one person so that the developer contractors aren't coming to two different entities to deal with ENS standards for them. So just there's some coordination there, I guess, is perhaps the point.
And was that a decision that was made by city council or who
I believe that's a staff level decision.
To-
There wasn't,
to have those 3.5, how many acres? Sorry.
I believe it's about 3.5 golf holes. I
It's
don't know. how
21
many
acres,
acres
I
that
think.
is.
Isn't it 21 acres? It's more than I thought it was.
Just in the city portion?
Yeah.
I don't recall the
Yeah,
acreage.
it's somewhere, that is in the, there's a number and I think it's in the comprehensive plans where I read it. I think.
So, so that land is, we're ceding control over that land to the county. Is that what I'm hearing?
I wouldn't put it in that sense. It's just the implementation of the erosion sedimentation control measures. They're state measures. So we have one entity implementing that.
Mhm.
So it should be enforced equally if it's their person or if it's our person. But it's just would muddy, sorry, that's not a good term for this. It would make it difficult to have two entities out there enforcing the same set of standards. So it's just easier in this case.
Thank you. Okay. So we left off with enhance the protection of streams and natural wetlands by protecting and restoring buffer areas and discouraging underground piping of streams. So I know that we are doing some of this. And is there anything else that we need to change about that one? All right, 3.6, limit the extent of impervious surfaces that degrade water quality by considering reductions to minimum parking requirements and encouraging the use of pervious surfaces in development projects. And we're doing this?
We definitely went through for the multifamily parking requirements and adjusted those. To be honest, I think we could do more in parking requirements. There's a national movement to completely get rid of minimum parking requirements, and that's happened in small cities, big cities. It's happening across the country. So yes, we have done that, and
Okay.
I think we could do that again.
Okay, so we'll leave it. And then Jeremy, you had recommended adding another one, which,
I threw out the possibility of adding park space, but that sounded like that was not ideal, just due to the limited availability of land. Was that the one you're referring to?
I thought that it was when I was going through my comments and you said it could go under 3.2, so
Oh, that's right.
under tree canopy.
encouraging city plant native trees and
Yes,
city
that,
property when
uh,
feasible.
That was probably it. Yep. So that's where so that's 3.7 or somewhere in there. Native trees. All right. Moving on to the hands raised value.
Can I interject if I may? Just
Yeah, of course.
fun. There is a reason for those.
Right.
So earlier.
Yeah,
in
sorry, I just
the
don't know what they are.
general
I'm
plan,
sorry.
So the
Okay, great.
accessibility and diversity would be the puzzle pieces. I'm not gonna read all of it, but the hand with the thing that looks like a dollar sign, which I presume isn't, is sustainable economy. Actually, it is. Local identity and character would be the building corner with the 2 dates and the cornerstones, the hands raised, citizen engagement, and the people with the cog, management and collaboration.
Thank you.
Would it be helpful to include those labels under each of them? I know I'm sure some ways they probably just included the symbols just to be shorthand, to not have the tables be as wordy, but it'd be easy enough to add those back in if you think it'd be helpful across the board.
I
but-
think it would be helpful for people who are
Yeah.
not working with it every
Uh-huh.
day.
Well, if you're gonna do that, then why have the symbol of?
Sure. Well, symbols can, I mean, it's just reinforcing. I think that the symbols are actually helpful and might sort of lend themselves towards ADA compliance. I would leave them, but I would do both. That would be my preference anyway. Okay, so GI 4.1. Educate and encourage landowners to install green infrastructure, best management practices, plant native trees and vegetation, and reduce fertilizer and pesticide use. Was this one that we were suggesting adding collaborate with local organizations to at the beginning of it? Okay. And is this something, I mean, certainly there are local organizations that do that. So is that something that is ongoing?
The city's not really doing that one at all.
The city's not doing that one.
That is a local organization.
Okay, so then I guess we will leave this one not marked off yet, but knowing that we will be collaborating. Actually, you know what? The city has been collaborating with Rockbridge Conservation on planting trees along Woods Creek for a long time now. So yes,
Boxerwood with composting and perhaps other things as well. They have
Yep.
initiatives.
yep, and Rockbridge Conservation also does composting. So yeah, I think that. Okay, we're good. All right, 4.2. Identify and collaborate with local organizations to educate landowners on installing solar panels. Do we do that?
I'm aware of, no.
And who would you do that with? So again, the only the Rockbridge Conservation does puts solar panels on habitat houses. But as far as I know, that's only a collaboration with Habitat. And so between Rockbridge Conservation, Habitat, and like the state. But I don't think that that's city, and certainly the house, those houses are in the county, but Habitat houses are going to be being built in the city at some point. So that could be, but I don't know that the city would have a role to play in that. I do not know.
So if we can't identify an organization that actually does that, even though it's a valued thing to do, and people that are interested, I think, have the ability to go out and find resources for this exact same thing.
Yep.
So just wondering if it's even necessary.
I would agree with that.
If we were to keep it, I guess the one way it could be done is to cut the first part and say to educate landowners on the resources available for installing solar panels or something to that effect, that if there was a desire to keep solar in there somehow, just as another option, but also could just as easily cut it.
It's the responsibility on the city if it's in there. That's the only thing.
Yeah, for
Well,
sure.
and that's the problem. We're missing one of the columns at the end that says who leading it, because that was a big discussion we had. Is, do we include things that the city isn't a part of, which I think as we see now, it's too difficult if you do that. I mean, it's not really, we have no control. We can't even get updates.
Right.
I would sort of be inclined to cut anything that the city's not going to be directly involved in.
Right. Unless there is some sort of collaboration.
Yeah, right, right.
Um, and I suppose the city could, I mean, I wouldn't, I would, if we were gonna keep it, I would take identify and just start it with collaborate with. Or even support local organizations. Which is broad and could mean that, if an organization came to the city and said, hey, would you be willing to provide this information to people when they're coming to you about solar panels? So doesn't I mean, when people do put solar panels on their house, they have to get a permit,
Electrical permit.
right? And it has to pass the building inspector, right? So,
The homeowner's already educated at that point.
yeah. Well, what do you all think? Do we leave it in there, collaborate with local organizations to educate landowners on installing?
Gives the city that responsibility. I don't
think we take
think
it
that
out.
necessarily belongs there.
So it sounds, that's two people want to take it out. Anybody else want to weigh in? Care one way or the other?
I mean, if we're not doing it, we don't see a path to doing it. Am I understanding that correctly? We don't see any way in which.
I think that you could certainly see a way that you could collaborate with local organizations. But it would take the local organization coming to the city and saying, hey, we want to do this thing. And then they could say, and we would be helping you fulfill this green infrastructure.
I mean, other than the habitat partnership with Rockbridge Conservation, isn't it all for-profit people who are doing the solar?
As far as I know. But I think the idea is that we're trying to encourage solar.
Right.
Towards that end, since this is the green infrastructure, maybe we could leave it in. Just as a placeholder. I would love to have the Healthy Green Neighborhoods Initiative take a pass over this. They are doing green infrastructure in the city, and it would be really great for them to take a look.
One
at
thing that I should have
this.
mentioned at the beginning of this is that we also did not include it in your meeting packet tonight, but Jamie Gooden provided the Healthy Green Neighborhoods latest strategic plan. And they also obviously were given a copy of the green infrastructure draft chapter when it came in. So I fully expect that they will be weighing in with some
Okay,
recommendations.
super. That's great. Okay, so why don't we leave this in here
Yeah.
then?
Yeah.
And it's not gonna hurt anything to leave it in, but it looks like we're not doing it yet. Okay, so moving on to 4.3. Continue to engage the support of local students, volunteers, and nonprofit organizations to help the city achieve its environmental and green infrastructure goals. Well, we're certainly doing that with the Healthy Green Neighborhoods.
Mm.
And it seems like this is a good one to keep on the.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. Next one, sorry, management and what was the gear? See, you don't even remember it.
Collaboration.
And collaboration, okay. Okay. So that goal is support partnerships that improve green infrastructure and protect natural resources. So this is about partnerships. 5.1, identify and collaborate with local organizations that promote development and use of green infrastructure sites, linkages, and waterways within the city and the larger region, including sports organizations. I'm going to suggest adding conservation organizations, Rockbridge Outdoors, Carillion Hospital, and retail businesses selling outdoor equipment. Very specific. Okay, so Rockbridge Outdoors. Is it outdoors or outdoor?
Outdoors.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so promote development and use of sites. Is this already happening? I assume this is already happening. And do we need both Rockbridge Outdoors and sports organizations? I don't know what those sports organizations.
Would that be Raro?
Yeah, Raro.
Raro?
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to just say Raro or
But then you have like I guess the private,
any of the teams?
yeah, lacrosse and soccer.
Okay.
But
Okay, so sports organizations, conservation organizations, Rockbridge Outdoors, Carillion Hospital, and retail businesses selling outdoor equipment. Is that good that way? Okay. And we are already doing that. GI 5.2, collaborate with regional organizations such as the CSPDC and Natural Bridge Soil and Water Conservation District to seek funding and resources to implement green infrastructure best management practices to improve local and regional water quality. Are we doing that?
Yeah, I know we still have our, I guess, mini grant program that funds best management practices for that type of thing. I'd have to look back at the list. I don't think there was a Lexington project in this most recent round, but it's still ongoing, and we're hoping to get another round of funding for that to re-up that program in the future.
What is that program called again?
It's through the Watershed Improvement Program, through the WIP program, but it's I'm forgetting exactly what they called it, but it was the WIP mini grant program that tries to help fund best management practices, like riparian buffers and bioswales and
Right.
those types of things.
well, did y'all help us with somebody helped us to get grant funding for the new rain garden or to revamp the rain
That was
garden?
probably Zach in our office more than likely.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember for sure, but
Yeah.
more than likely.
Great, though, I would say, yes, we're doing it.
Okay, so wait, that was this through this? I'm just looking at, is this an ongoing?
Yeah, we got grant funding.
Okay, sounds good.
Not gonna pay.
And I assume we want to leave this here.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, going on to the next one. GI 5.3, work with regional stakeholders to develop a comprehensive regional energy and climate action plan that identifies common issues, agreed upon approaches and principles, joint actions, and individual contributions by each participating locality and the major institutions of higher learning. Is this something that we have talked to anybody about doing even?
The state last year almost required that every PDC put together an energy plan
Yeah.
for their region. It didn't pass, so it wasn't required. It's a little bit different, but we're also just starting the process of doing the regional water supply plan, which at least gets at the climate action piece of ensuring that there is, say, a drought response plan for how to address ensure that there is available water in case of a drought. So that process is just beginning. It won't be finished until 2029. Again, that's based off of the DEQ's requirements for that. But there's at least, so I'd say there's pieces of that, even if it's not directly an energy and climate action plan.
And is there a role for communities like Lexington to play in that, or is that just something that the CSPDC is putting together?
Well, certainly all of the localities and in the case of the water supply line, particularly the water providers like Maury Service Authority, and those are involved in the I guess the stakeholder group that is directly involved in determining what those drought response plans or excuse me, response strategies ought to be. So yes, there's only be a seat at the table for informing what that
Okay.
process will look like.
And they're actively participating then.
Mhm.
Great.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm gonna say that that is ongoing. So then the other things that I have written down notes on are easements. Connections towards Rockbridge Conservation. Sorry, did we cover that? Sorry, Rockbridge County. Did we cover that somewhere? I feel like we did.
I think we were gonna put a pin in it because Sarni said it kind of relates to the transportation section and we were gonna look at it then.
Right, and but you talked about the plan that we already had, and
Oh,
we did
right.
refer to that.
Right.
So I think we've covered that one. All right. And then increasing park space. And you said that that's a non-starter.
I don't, yes, I would say so. I mean, we haven't heard any feedback that we're lacking in park space anywhere.
So if somebody bought a piece of property or owned a piece of property that they were like, gosh, I want to donate this to,
Right.
to the city, would the city, as long as the city chose to make it into a park, would the city welcome that?
Not necessarily, I wouldn't think. I think you'd have to look at what the property is and
Yeah,
what-
yeah.
how, because the city will have to put a lot of money into developing it and then maintaining it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I wouldn't say as a blanket statement, yes, we'd be very excited about that,
yeah,
but possibly.
possibly. Yeah. Okay. So do we not then want to have anything about increasing park space? Is that what I'm hearing?
It would.
Okay, that is all I have on this one, and we are going into, I'm sort of feeling like maybe we need to stop here
Yeah.
and that'll give you the opportunity to make changes on the next chapter before our next meeting. And my voice will be rested by then. So does that work for everybody?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you so much
Yeah,
for your
cool.
help with this.
For all the feedback.
Okay. So we will get back to the community facilities chapter. If anybody has some time to read through that chapter and get any comments that you have to Jeremy, just copy Jeremy and Arnie so they both have it. And I think it's probably helpful to you to have those comments in writing. Is that right? Certainly. Yeah. Okay. Right, so that Jeremy doesn't have to write down notes in the meeting. Okay, so, PUDs, are we,
That was a placeholder,
Okay.
just for your information. We would like to get back to that at some point, and we will weave that in and out as we have time, particularly since the comp plan is the major effort at the moment. But just to point out, we would like to get back to another planned development residential district that provides flexibility again for residential uses that we had, and what was provided to you was just the previous version that we had in the zoning ordinance prior to that 2016-2017 massive update. So hopefully we can use that as sort of a template to move forward with a new PD residential.
okay. Sounds good.
Just in case anybody else is kind of wondering about that, Arnie, it's going to be called a planned development now instead of a planned unit development. Is that right?
It's basically the same thing in the sense that PUD was just the term utilized, planned unit development. So it was at least of a decent size, though it would work on its own. You wouldn't want to do it, even though we've done this, so I've got to be careful. But you wouldn't want to do a PUD for half an acre and split it into a duplex in an area that's all single family. because that's not large enough to pull that duplex off. Maybe that's not the best example. Something of something a little bit more intensive than that. And if it's too small, then it just doesn't come off as, so you need at least a minimum acreage for that thing to work. I'm not sure I'm explaining that really well. But unfortunately, we have, because I went through all the PUDs that we have approved since 1990 when PUD went into place. And the first one was for 60 West. So that was duplexes, shared property line, shared common wall duplexes. That wasn't allowed in the zoning ordinance. So they went to and developed a PUD text and then had that approved through the city. But then we sort of used that amount of flexibility for a duplex here on one little lot and some other things. So we can review that the next time. So it's really just the ability to have flexibility where you're trying to put in development that doesn't meet the standard zoning criteria. Doesn't really matter if you call it PUD or planned development / something. We just opened up the ability when we went from PUD to planned development, mixed use, to have the other PDs, planned developments, be called in that sort of same naming characterization or naming format. So it'll be planned development residential, I think makes more sense
Hmm.
than having PUD and PDMU.
So is that
When,
kind of like,
when we,
I'm
oh, sorry, go ahead.
like a CUP for the development of a neighborhood that is, like you said, residential and you want it to be something else? It's like an exception to the rule? Is that what you're saying?
It's an exception to whatever rules
In zoning
for residential. So as in just a quick example, this was only for residential properties. So you couldn't put in a convenience store in the middle of a residential area because that PUD specifically said, as I recall, it is an overlay only on the residential zoning districts. So you could only allow the things that are already approved in those residential zoning districts as the use. You couldn't then grab an industrial or a commercial use and get a use variance. So it
Right.
allows flexibility, but not too
it's not
much.
opening it up, but it's just allowing that to, I guess, present as an exception to that.
right.
And when we pick this up, would it be possible for you to provide us with some sort of images of places where this has already been? And I mean, I was having a hard time sort of thinking about, as I read through this, like, okay, so we could change the building height and setback, and like, how much different could something be from its surroundings? I guess that's sort of what I was trying to understand.
What I'm planning on doing, and because I've already gone through and pulled all the PUDs that were approved in 1990 up till recently, mind you, most of those are reconfigurations of Weatherburn. But so we can see how that was used previously. So how the PUD text that you have in your packet, how that was implemented and used, and then make adjustments as needed.
That'd be helpful. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to other business. Sorry, I think we did not have public comment. Is there any public comment on either PUDs or the comp plan review? I've opened it and I've closed it. Success. Okay, how about a zoning and planning report?
Just 2 items. First of all, we have a updated GIS, or Geographic Information System. It has additional capabilities. And there's a link on our website. I don't understand the details, but whatever software they were using was being phased out. So they went to Map Insights, and that's what was utilized to crank out this map.
Nice.
If you are a map nerd and want to have some fun, there are additional capabilities on the new site, and it's quite a lot of fun.
And this is just on the web? Or, I
Well,
mean, you have
I
to
don't-
special
it's
access?
a weird, no, it's public access, but I don't have the URL, and it's not nearly as easy as the old URL. So the easiest way to go is to our website, the City of Lexington's website, and click the link there to go to the new Map Insights.
So it's not the old one with Timmons?
No,
GIS?
that one is still up. Thank you for mentioning that. That's still up till the end of the year. So you can still use that one, but at the end of the year, it goes away and everybody's going to have to use this new Map Insights. And I don't know if they'll then make the URL a lot easier, but the one right now is just a little bit not as straightforward or intuitive as that old one. And the second item to mention is we are working on the next public input session for the comp plan. It will be December 9th. 5:30 PM at Rara. So the old Piovano room where you voted. That's all I have for a planning zone report.
All right, great, thank you. Leslie, do you have a city council? report?
No, we met last Thursday, but it was a pretty short meeting and nothing really pertinent to planning.
Thank you. All right, and I think that we're back to this spot in our meeting.
I move to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Back for next time.
No, sorry, you can keep those because I think it's going to be helpful when we go through the land use chapter and some of the other ones. You're certainly welcome to keep those. Or if you don't want us to hold on to them and bring them back, we can do that as well.
That'd be better, yeah,
Up to you.
yeah. Be great.
Yeah, I just want to take a picture of.
Oh.
Better
I don't
than-
either.
better than in my phone.
Rachel